Hello. Sorry about the glare in my glasses in the last video, as well as any other evidence that I obviously filmed this in front of my laptop. I'm still getting the hang of this somewhat, but I want to keep these reviews coming. Today, we will examine a rather unexpected gem, Catching Fire. The Hunger Games series is a book trilogy that depicts a dystopian future in which children from poor districts, oppressed by the rich and powerful capital, are randomly selected to take place in a televised battle to the death. The movies are based on these books. Now before I go on, here are my Hunger Games credentials. 1. I haven't read any of the books, and 2. I saw the first movie but I kept leaving and coming back. So I unfortunately can't comment on its relation to the book. But I can offer the perspective of someone who hasn't read the books. From this perspective, I thought the first movie had a few strong points, but overall was not very well directed and kinda boring. All in all, my lack of a strong positive reaction to the first movie, and the fact that I don't care enough to put any time or energy into reading the books, all gave me little reason to expect much from the second movie. If you haven't read or watched the first installment, I should warn you, this video will have some spoilers. I'll try not to spoil too much about Catching Fire, but either way, I'm going to put up a spoiler alert. Catching Fire picks up after Katniss and Peeta win the 74th annual Hunger Games together by threatening to simultaneously commit suicide, much to the Capitol's frustration. As you may know, there's only supposed to be one winner, but Katniss and Peeta both managed to survive by retaining a popular public image of star-crossed lovers. Whether or not they are really in love, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. Now Katniss and Peeta are on tour as the victors. They are living a richer life, thus showing the generosity of the Capitol. But the tour is very scripted, full of fake emotions, and all part of the Capitol's plan to control the public. But Katniss must go through with all this, as the fate of District 12, her district, depends on it. For the sake of avoiding spoilers, I'll stop there. The first movie followed a simple formula. The first part focuses on the Capitol, their relationship to the public, their relationship to the tributes and or victors, etc. Then the second part focused on the games for which the movie was titled. Without giving too much away, Catching Fire follows a similar format, but with more focus on the first part. There is one weak point in the plot, in my opinion.
Spoiler alert.
The Quarter Quell takes place every 25 years. This is a special version of the Hunger Games, where the tributes are selected from the victors of previous Hunger Games. It takes place in this movie. While it does give this fictional society more depth, I think the fact that it was taking place that year was a little bit too convenient, both as a means of getting Katniss and Peeta back into the Hunger Games, and as something for President Snow to use against them.
Unspoiler alert.
But aside from this, and a few very other small things, the plot was very solid. It was complex, and everything the characters did was consistent with their motivations. There is a very entertaining, and at times, surprisingly inspirational, game of cat and mouse between the victors and the Capitol, as they subtly, and at times not so subtly, compete for the favor, or in the case of the Capitol, control, of the public. There's a lot of politics, and I dare say some rather awesome moments. While the first movie was dull, depressing, and just overall uninteresting, Catching Fire was full of moments that were like, wow. The plot of this movie was definitely its biggest strong point. It was a much more complex and engaging plot than the straightforward plot of film 1. And I won't say if it ends well or not, but seeing the victors one-upping the Capitol after the first movie, no, even after parts in this movie, was refreshing to say the least, in spite of the fact that overall, the whole thing was actually pretty stressful. It was supposed to be. It gets you mad at the Capitol. The writing was definitely improved as well. It was a little closer to the caliber of a good Shyamalan or Nolan movie. Not there, but closer. And this was definitely an improvement. The degree to which it was better than the first film was almost inconsistent. It was a lot more intelligent, self-aware, and even witty. Even Peeta was smarter. The plot and writing was improved to the point where Catching Fire didn't even feel like the same series, and yet it still made use of all the information of film 1. It was seriously weird how good this movie was. The acting was improved too. Jennifer Lawrence, who plays Katniss, was I just don't really have any strong opinions on Jennifer Lawrence either way. She played Katniss well, I guess. The same applies to Josh Hutcherson, who played Peeta. The acting overall definitely wasn't perfect, but it was still a big improvement on the first movie. And overall, the characters conveyed the emotions they set out to convey. And what else can you ask for? The characters were much more developed. It was as if they just woke up one day and had feelings and opinions on the events of movie 1. And unlike the first movie, Katniss and Peeta weren't the only actual characters. Other characters were developed, relevant to the plot, and even given some quirks, though in one case that wasn't really a good thing. But overall the characters were solid, in the sense that there were more of them, and in the sense that they developed. There weren't as many characters as there could have been, but there were still more than the first movie. But Gale was a weak character. He just was. I'm sorry. The visuals made sense. You definitely got a feel for this world, and the division between the rich, computer-animated capital and the poor suburban districts didn't seem strange or inconsistent like with the first movie. It all looked different in the ways it was supposed to, without making it look like they were switching filming styles. The special effects were adequate. They weren't as good as they could have been, but they weren't bad to the point of distraction. Sound-wise, the movie was strong, too. Okay, why is this a category? I mean, how much can you say about sound? Well, at any rate, there's one very eerie part of this movie where sound was essential and very alarming, and it worked. The music was almost perfect. It was a lot different from the music in the first movie, in a good way, but it also used some of the same music whenever appropriate. They basically took the sad, yet horrifying soundtrack of the first movie and turned it to a sad, yet kind of hopeful soundtrack. Overall, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire was a huge improvement on the first movie. Before I saw this movie, I thought the series was just something written to make preteen girls cry. But I was able to get into this movie in a way I didn't expect, and that's all coming from someone who didn't read the books or like the first movie. If you were disappointed by the first movie, you might want to give this one a look. But I do think I should warn you about the typical controversial violence of the series, and also an unexpected scene of very suggestive content. The scene that introduces us to Joanna, played by Jenna Malone, is not appropriate, so watch out for that. But anyway, Catching Fire was an anomaly. It was definitely a hidden gem I was not expecting to find. As such, I give it an 8 out of 10. So that's it for Catching Fire. Keep checking back for next time, when I will be reviewing The Wolverine. Until then, don't forget to subscribe, comment, or check out Josh's game reviews and or Matey's cartoon reviews. Have a good day.